Many people mistakenly believe that power must always be accompanied by distance. Most still think that for a leader to be respected, they must sit in a glass office, take a private elevator, and wear expensive suits without a single wrinkle. This is the mindset of an old era, the mindset of administrative machines based on fear and commands. The reality is much more brutal, but also much more sophisticated. In the world of modern management, where people value the ego and freedom, ultimate power does not come from standing on high and pointing fingers. It comes from sitting at the same table, eating from the same bowl, and suffering in the same bunker. This is the squad leader paradox. We must understand the nature of this paradox from the very beginning. Why is it called the squad leader? In the military, a general is someone who gives orders from a distance, but a squad leader is the one who endures the same hardships and shares every burden alongside the soldiers. When entering battle, soldiers may fear the general, but they are willing to die for their squad leader. Applied to human resource management or corporate governance, this principle becomes an extremely sharp psychological weapon to break down human defense mechanisms. When a leader removes physical and lifestyle distances, they are performing a psychological surgery to remove the tumor called envy and suspicion in the minds of employees. Look at the mechanics of human psychology. When facing someone of higher status, greater wealth, and more comfort, the subordinate brain automatically activates a defense mechanism. This is a survival instinct. People will default to the assumption that this relationship is one of exploitation. They think you pay and I sell my labor. When the hours are up, I go home. If you face difficulties, that is your problem because you profit more than I do. This psychological barrier keeps performance at a mediocre level, doing just enough not to get fired. But an employer ambition never stops there. To achieve extraordinary goals, to make employees work 12 or 14 hours a day without complaining, and to make them treat the company as home, money alone cannot buy it. Money is always finite, while contribution based on emotion is infinite. To tap into that infinite resource, wise leaders choose to humble themselves. The act of eating at the same table, sleeping in the same bunker, or using common casual language is not merely about being thrifty or simple. It is a calculated investment. When employees see the boss eating the same cheap lunchbox, wearing a worn-out t-shirt to work, or staying up until 2 a.m. to fix project bugs, an illusion of fairness emerges. The feeling of being exploited immediately vanishes, replaced by a sense of standing shoulder to shoulder. At this point, the boundary between employer and employee is blurred, and there are only teammates fighting together for a common goal. This mechanism works based on the synchronization of interests and pain. Humans tend to accept hardships more easily if they see their leader enduring those same hardships. They may even feel guilty if they rest while their elder brother is still working. This is the key point for controlling mindsets. Instead of using iron discipline to force employees into overtime, the leader uses their own image of selfless work to create invisible pressure. It is a soft pressure, but it weighs 1,000 tons, forcing subordinates to voluntarily contribute and sacrifice their personal time without demanding immediate commensurate benefits. Probing deeper on the operating table, we must analyze the price paid and the profit gained in this psychological transaction. On the leader side, what is lost is a bit of personal comfort, a bit of privacy, and outward glamour. But what is gained is absolute loyalty and productivity that exceeds all limits. When employees view their boss as a brother or a teammate, they will not dare to demand aggressive salary increases for fear of making things difficult for their brother. They will not have the heart to quit when the company faces trouble because it feels like an act of betrayal. They are ready to work on holidays and reply to messages at midnight because they think they are helping a loved one, not serving a boss. Clearly, the profit gained from erasing the distance is many times greater than the cost of a luxury meal or an expensive suit. Conversely, if a leader maintains an image of luxury, they push themselves into an adversarial position. When employees see the boss driving luxury cars and living in mansions while they struggle with rent, comparison and envy are inevitable. At that point, all calls for dedication and sacrifice for the collective become hollow and hypocritical. The worker will ask, Why should I sacrifice so you can get even richer? Then, the relationship returns to the naked nature of a transaction, cash for goods. No money means no extra effort. Controlling people with money is the most expensive and least sustainable way, as there will always be another place that pays more. But controlling through emotion and shared hardship creates a bond stronger than any labor contract. However, one must be clear-eyed to see the dark side of this management art. This is, in essence, a high-level form of psychological manipulation. A leader, whether they eat at the same table or sleep in the same bunker, does not change the fact that they own the business and the final results. When successful, the largest share of profit and fame still belongs to the person at the top. Equality at the dinner table does not mean equality in bank accounts or share ownership. The trap lies in the fact that employees often have the concepts of shared work and shared benefits swapped in their minds. They share the work and the hardships fairly, but they rarely receive a share of the rewards proportionate to what they put in under the guise of brotherhood. Reality shows many cases where, when a business is small, the boss and employees are like brothers, eating instant noodles together and sleeping at the office. But when the business grows strong and turns into a dragon, the elder brother of the past begins to change. At this point, distance is re-established. Old employees who once believed in the shared dream suddenly realize they are still just hired laborers, while their brother has moved to a different social class. This disillusionment often leads to bitter partings. But for the leader, the purpose has been served. The phase of needing to use emotion to compensate for financial shortages has passed, and now is the time to return to management principles based on interests and systems. We should not view this issue from a purely moral perspective of good or bad. This is the law of societal operation and behavioral psychology. A good leader is one who knows how to use every tool, from material to spiritual, to optimize resources. The fact that they accept humbling themselves and removing distance is also a commendable effort and a sacrifice of the ego. Not everyone can do it. Some, no matter how much they want to, cannot play the role of the ascetic because their ego is too large. Therefore, those who succeed in building the squad leader image are usually those with an excellent ability to control emotions and behavior. In other words, they are masters of acting in real life. Another aspect to dissect is the impact of this method on organizational culture. When barriers are broken, information flows faster. Employees dare to speak directly and honestly about existing problems because they think the boss is family. This helps the leader grasp the actual situation much more accurately than sitting in an ivory tower listening to edited reports. Proximity creates a clean flow of information, undistorted by fear. The leader knows exactly who is competent, who is not, who is dissatisfied, and who is loyal. From there, personnel and strategic decisions are made more accurately and timely. This is a practical administrative benefit that goes beyond emotional manipulation. Furthermore, the synchronization of lifestyle helps the leader become an icon and a role model. In psychology, humans always tend to mimic the behavior of the alpha. If the alpha is lazy, the whole pack is lazy. If the alpha charges forward, the whole pack becomes aggressive. When the boss is the first to arrive and the last to leave, no employee dares to be openly lazy. Control at this point does not require surveillance cameras or time clocks. It lies within the pressure of the work culture itself. Anyone who goes against that culture will feel ostracized or be condemned by the collective. The leader has skillfully transferred the task of supervision from themselves to the employees, who now monitor each other. However, a warning is needed regarding the risks of excessive blurring of distance. Extreme intimacy can lead to a lack of respect, a disregard for discipline, and the confusion between public and private matters. When employees view the boss as a friend, they may become lax in following processes or make unreasonable demands based on personal feelings. The hardest puzzle for a leader of this style is maintaining latent authority within outward friendliness. They must make employees both love and revere them. They must be someone the staff dares to pat on the shoulder for a beer after work, but whose word is as firm as a mountain during work hours. Achieving this balance requires immense character and extreme subtlety, and not everyone can do it. It is common to see inexperienced leaders try to mimic this style only to be taken advantage of by their staff, leading to a loose and inefficient organization. Broadening the perspective, this phenomenon appears not only in business but also in politics and social organizations. Populist leaders, those who know how to speak the language of the crowd and eat the food of the crowd, always receive fanatical support. The crowd always longs to find a reflection of themselves in their leader. They want to believe that the person holding power is just like them and understands their suffering. It is a need to be understood and represented. Whoever meets that psychological need gains control over the crowd. In reality, behind the scenes, the lives of the leader and the crowd remain two completely different worlds. Returning to the workers, those placed within this psychological matrix, they need to maintain a clear perspective. It is undeniable that working with an approachable, hard-working boss is a blessing. That environment is much more pleasant than bureaucratic imposition. However, one must not let emotions cloud the nature of the labor relationship. Enthusiasm and dedication are necessary for promotion, but they must be based on clear commitments regarding benefits. Do not let shared meals or brotherly heart-to-hearts make you forget to negotiate salary, bonuses, insurance, and growth roadmaps. Loyalty is precious, but it must be placed in the right spot and valued correctly. Do not sell your loyalty cheaply for a few calculated gestures of friendliness. It must also be recognized that this removal of distance is sometimes a double-edged sword for the leaders themselves if they are not sincere. In the age of the information explosion, any hypocrisy is easily exposed. If one day employees discover that the boss who always complains about being poor and eats lunchboxes with them is secretly buying supercars or multi-trillion dong real estate, the collapse of trust will be catastrophic. The feeling of being deceived will turn love into hatred. At that point, collective resistance will be stronger than any strike for economic reasons, because the wound of broken trust is always more painful and lingering than a material shortage. In summary, the squad leader paradox is a powerful testament to the fact that soft power is sometimes scarier and more effective than hard power. Removing distance and sharing a table and a bunker is a high-level management tactic aimed at identifying the personal goals of the leader with the collective ideal. It strikes the emotional Achilles heel of humans, awakening a spirit of contribution and voluntary loyalty. For the leader, this is a way to optimize costs and maximize performance. For the worker, this is a humanistic work environment, but one filled with emotional traps. To survive and thrive in this environment, one needs a cold head and a warm heart. Dedicate yourself fully to the work and appreciate the proximity of the leader, but absolutely do not be delusional about your status. Always remember that on this chessboard, even if the king puts his arm around the pawn is still a pawn. The mission of the pawn is to advance and sacrifice to protect the king. Only when the pawn reaches the end of the board and is promoted does its status truly change. Before that, all friendliness is merely lubricant to make the machine run more smoothly. Do not let the blurring of distance obscure the boundaries of core interests. The naked truth is that the leader needs empathy to control, and the employee needs clarity to avoid having their kindness exploited.